You're listening to Midlife Side Quest, the Over the Hill Gaming Podcast. Here's your host, John Wall.
It's January 2nd, 2025, and welcome to another episode of Midlife Side Quest, the Over the Hill Video Game Podcast. Happy New Year! My name is John Wall, and every Thursday morning I bring you my video game impressions, the latest industry news, and tales of a Gen X geek, delivered to you in 15 minutes or your next podcast is free. Thank you so much for tuning in today. On this episode, I'm going to be talking about my top 10 games of 2024. This is a two-part special, and today I'll be doing my first 5 picks, and then tomorrow on another episode, I'll be sharing my top 5. So 2024 was a weird year in gaming. There were certainly a lot of great video games, but it maybe wasn't quite as flashy as last year. There was also this feeling that Nintendo was slowing things down and holding things back a little bit for the launch of the Switch 2 next year. So that console didn't get as much playtime for me personally. And of course, a lot of the great games had a large shadow looming over them with the continued layoffs and closures from around the industry. Nearly 15,000 people were laid off in 2024, and no studio or publisher was immune. There were big layoffs at Embracer, Sony, Unity, Microsoft, EA, Take-Two, and of course, there were lots of games media closures, including Game Informer. Gaming is in a tough spot where the quality of games is undoubtedly great, but publishers can't seem to figure out a post-pandemic plan to be profitable while also, keeping their teams employed. AAA budgets are increasingly just way out of control, and the chase to be the next live service hit has cost many developers their jobs. So hopefully in 2025, they can find a way forward that works for everyone, and we won't need to place an asterisk when we talk about what a great year it's been for games. All right, here we go. The Midlife Side Quest top 10 games of 2024. And starting things off at number 10, we have Botany Manor from Balloon Studios and Whitethorn Games. Botany Manor is a first-person puzzle game that has players exploring a home in the English countryside and researching the local fauna for a botanical journal that you're writing. You'll need to find the right seeds, pot them, and then study items and notes around the property to learn how to make the flowers bloom. For instance, one flower might need you to recreate a certain type of lighting or humidity in the room in order to grow, and another will only bloom if it's pollinated by a specific bird, but you'll need to figure out how to lure that bird to the plant first. As you get each flower to bloom, you'll fill out your journal and unlock more of the grounds to explore. And each plant has a unique requirement to grow, so each puzzle feels different and interesting and fun. The game also strikes a great balance by being both challenging enough to give you a good sense of accomplishment when you figure things out, but it's also never so tough that you get frustrated with it. There's also just enough storytelling with you playing as a retired botanist who has been left the property in an inheritance to give you a bit more to be interested in beyond, just the puzzles themselves. It is a relaxing and chill puzzler that's also great to play on the couch with somebody else. At number 9, we have Still Wakes the Deep from The Chinese Room and Secret Room. This psychological horror game takes heavy inspiration from the classic movie The Thing. You play as an electrician who has taken a job on an oil rig to escape some trouble that he got into with the law, leaving his wife and his kids behind on the mainland without him. When the drill awakens an ancient evil that's been lurking on the ocean floor, the rig turns into a twisted maze of horrors that devour everything in sight and turn your crewmates into grotesque monstrosities. As you try and find your way off the platform, the vibe of the game becomes increasingly grim as more and more of your friends either die or are turned into these creatures straight out of a John Carpenter movie. What really helps to sell the horror, though, is that they do a really good job of making you feel for this character who really just wants to try and fix things up with his wife and with his family, but he keeps screwing things up. He's not a hero, but you want things to turn out for him, you're kind of rooting for him. And the voice acting is really quite good, even though the heavy Scottish accents are sometimes a little bit tough to follow along, but that's what subtitles are for. At number 8 is Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 from Ninja Theory and Xbox Game Studios. This long-anticipated follow-up to the 2017 original had a lot of pressure on it. Not only was it the first Xbox game shown for this generation, it was revealed with the hardware back at, I think it was the Game Awards, but it was also one of the few first-party releases for Microsoft in the first half of the year. So, while it seemingly wasn't a huge commercial success, it did well critically. It was well received, and it garnered the studio 4 nominations at the Game Awards. So the sequel finds Senua captured and aboard a northern slave ship, but after the storm crashes the ship to shore, Senua takes one of the slavers prisoner and forces him to lead her to their camp in an attempt to rescue her people who've been captured in previous raids. She's once again haunted by hallucinations and voices in her head. Hellblade 2 is a masterclass in audio and visual presentation. The voice work and performance capture are really stunning, and the game tells a more personal and affecting story this time about a woman battling through fear and self-doubt to become a leader, really, and to not let her past or her history define who she is. It's definitely, I think, one of the more underrated games of 2024. Moving on to the number 7 spot, and we have The Rise of the Golden Idol from Color Gray Games and PlayStack. One of the most brilliant puzzle game concepts I think I've ever played. Golden Idol has you examining crime scenes and scenarios to look for clues, and ultimately you need to work out what exactly happened in each of these scenes that you're looking at. As you examine items or people in the environment, you will fill up a list of words relating to that scene. And once you think you know the truth, you click and drag each of these words to fill out a description of the scene, which is filled with blank spaces. It's simple in concept, but mind-bending occasionally in execution. You'll need to pay attention to every little detail, even ones that don't seem that important, or even clues from previous scenes can relate to what you're looking at. And the story of this powerful item with magical powers being used to manipulate others is filled with quirky characters and some wild plot twists. There are a few moments where the puzzles, get so complex that my brain started to ooze out of my ears, but when the difficulty hits that sweet spot, when it's right on, it makes you feel like Benoit Blanc for figuring everything out. And at number 6, we have Final Fantasy VII Rebirth from Square Enix. I was incredibly happy that this game turned out as good as it did. As someone who really enjoyed Final Fantasy VII back when it first came out on the PS1, I was a little bit disappointed in the first chapter of this reimagined trilogy. I found it to be kind of overstuffed and a bit convoluted. Thankfully, though, this middle chapter feels much more well thought out and satisfying, and it gives me faith in where the vision of Midgard is going next. The game world is much more open, which allows for more exploration, including with the chocobos, who are amazing. Everybody loves chocobos. The combat feels a lot better. There's the fantastic collectible card game Queen's Blood, which I was super addicted to. And memorable moments like the Golden Saucer. Plus, the game found its sense of humor, and that's one of my favorite things about this game. It's funny, from Red 13's ridiculous disguise to the bar that you go to that is exclusively for bald people. And of course, Dio, who is... He's a lot. But this game, it's funny, and it's exciting, and it's beautiful, and it's fun to explore. Yes, the very end does drag on a bit, and it does get a little bit, wonky and a little overly anime again, but it's a lot of fun, and it left me excited for the upcoming conclusion. So that's the first half of my top 10. Lots of great games on there. Like I said, this year was tough. There were some great games that were left off the list. So lots of them didn't make the cut. Make sure to tune in again tomorrow morning, and I will share with you my top 5. So last year I made some predictions about 2024 and said that I'd be checking back a year later to see how they fared. So let's take a look back and see what I guessed, see what I got right, and what I got wrong. My first prediction was that we were going to get a summer reveal and a November launch for the Switch 2. Yep. Big old swing and a miss on that one. It's not out yet, and we still haven't gotten any word from Nintendo about it. I think we're going to find out fairly soon, though, what they're planning. There have been constant leaks about this thing, so I don't think they're going to wait too long into 2025 before they share their plans. My second prediction was that Hellblade 2 would release in September, and it would land in the low to mid 80s on Metacritic. Well, the game actually came out in May, so a little earlier than I thought, so I was off by a couple of months, but it did land at an 81 on Metacritic, so I'm going to give myself a partial win on that one. Let's say half a point. Next, I said that Sony would announce a remaster of both Ghost of Tsushima and Bloodborne. Nope. And nope. Bloodborne fans are still just like out in the cold despite constant teases. Man, Sony just doesn't seem to have much love for those guys. And we got an announcement for a Ghost of Tsushima sequel instead, which, is hard to be upset about. I'm excited for that. So next I said that Xbox and Activision would release a bunch of back catalog games on Game Pass, and we would get new announcements for new Tony Hawk and Skylanders games. And maybe above all else, I'm shocked that this one didn't happen. I'm pretty surprised at how quiet Microsoft has been about all of the IP that they got along with Activision. We did get a couple of games, throughout the year in Game Pass, but nowhere near what I was expecting. I was expecting a big, big release of that catalog. So that was a miss too. I'm not doing so hot. My last two predictions were that Sony would acquire Capcom, which did not happen. I think Capcom might have been in a place to be acquired a few years ago, but they're probably on too much of an upswing at this point. They're one of the hottest publishers in gaming right now. And then I finished things up with the requisite incorrect prediction that Banjo-Kazooie 3 would get announced, and it was worth a shot. Maybe with the success of Astrobot, Xbox will see finally the value in great platforming games, and we'll get it one day. I think I'm done predicting it, though. So out of a possible 6 points, I think I end with 0.5, half a point. Not great. Not great at all. I'll try to redeem myself tomorrow when I make my 2025 predictions. Thank you so much for listening to Midlife Side Quest. I appreciate you making time in your day to hang out with me. You can catch new episodes of the show Thursday mornings wherever you listen to podcasts, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a review while you're there. You can also find me on Blue Sky or Threads by searching for Midlife Side Quest. So, until tomorrow, be well and happy gaming.